Traffic cop Rob Brown here in Atlanta, Sandy Springs. Dave Bartoo out in Oregon in the mountains. Pete Cordelli in
Too damn
Nashville.
early.
Tom Cruise, Ellis Johnson over in South Carolina. Brendan Martin, Ocala, Florida. A lot to cover today. If you have been in a cave, you missed it because college football is fully underway. The bombs have been dropping since early this morning in Birmingham, throughout the state of Alabama. No need to panic. Please move along. Nothing to see here. We're going to cover a lot today. Take a picture with your phone of the QR code, okay? Live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. We do this Monday through Friday, and this channel is putting out content every day of the week. We have the greatest audience. We cracked 100,000 on last Wednesday's show. Brendan works harder than 3 dozen Mennonite farmers. We're going to continue. The only easy day was yesterday. Just getting started. So we got the band here together. I'll tee it off here right now. Kind of bounce it around rapid fire. First off, Dave, you watched and took a lot of notes. We all did. Fire the opening round of what took your attention, occupied the most of your attention in week one, which really started, Thursday of this weekend.
Took a lot of notes. Dude, I was just watching football. What do you think I do? I don't do X's and O's for a living. You know that. You know that.
No.
I think I think the biggest takeaway I had, right off the top of my head, outside of looking for anomalies in the football, is all of our big games. And as we talked about even a little bit on the air, we had really low scoring football games. Even you got LSU. What was that? 17-10. You got 14-7 Ohio State, Texas. And what the hell is up with these coaches not putting points on the damn board in a tight football game? Good Lord. Like, do coaches even understand they lose more games going for it on fourth down than they actually win games being successful on fourth down? If you extrapolate the numbers, you lose more than you win. Same thing with going for two. It just looks sexy when it works out. It's one of those, half the time it works every time. Good night. No, the scoring was great. It was cool. I thought the best game we had overall, balance wise, running attack, passing attack, everything. Close football game. We got it last night as Mario and the Hurricanes get a huge win and set up. I mean, I don't know how you don't say it right now. Ohio State, LSU, all the big winners. Florida State. I mean, big winners this weekend. They are 100% set up for a playoff run, especially in the ACC, because there ain't a whole lot between Florida State and Miami winning a whole bunch of football games.
Yeah. Coach Johnson, on that note, your takeaways from weekend one, and you tipped me off on Clemson. That was a good point.
Well, the thing that's so glaring for them, and I think they're still going to have a good season, but they rushed for 32 yards, and that was a big problem last year. So it's been months, off season, spring, whatever else you had to do to fix it. And I think I don't know if they can't run it or if they leave it too soon and abandon the running game. But Dave is so right about this going for fourth down. But I think a lot of coaches have studied it, and sometimes in certain field positions, the analytics tell them to do it. And that famous quote, I had to send a message to my players that we came here to win. But that is one of the stupidest decisions. And I don't know if they, hold my beer, we're going for fourth down. I agree with you on that one 100%. And plus, I didn't like it when I was a defensive coordinator because we wanted to.
Yeah, I love the truth broker, Ellis Johnson. Pete Cordelli, weigh in here real quick on this rapid fire Monday morning blitz, and blessed to have everybody watching on Labor Day.
Yeah, I agree with Dave and Ellis that going forward on fourth down, and you kind of look and go, what is my gut telling me? I mean, this is where real coaching comes in. We have a heck of a punter. Let's flip the field and force this other team to go 90, 85 yards, because for them to put a drive together against my defense, and Coach Johnson, it's a credit to you. You know how hard it is to give up a long drive. Offensively, you got to come up with a penalty, a chunk play, something else. But if I can flip the field and eventually get my offense back in scoring position, where with field goal kickers now, I mean, how many plus 50-yard field goals did we see this weekend? That's starting to change the game and the mindset as well. So why would I go for it on fourth down at the other team's 35? I mean, that's a 40, that's a 52-yard field goal.
Yeah.
And we got kickers that are kicking at 60. I had a guy tell me over the weekend that the kid at Michigan, who was at Arkansas State, and I had the opportunity to do the Arkansas State Southeast Missouri game Saturday night, but a guy in the press box told me that Dominic Zavada, kid who started kicking for Butch Jones at Arkansas State, kicked 2 71-yard field goals in practice.
What?
And no win, obviously, but we're starting to see the advent of the Australian guys in the punting game, which we've seen for a while.
Yeah.
And now these kickers understand I can make a lot of money, not only in the college game, but on the next level. 71 yards, not once, but twice.
Yeah.
When it comes to games, defenses are going to be ahead of the offense right now, and they should be, especially when you have 2 new quarterbacks, Texas, Ohio State. Sane didn't do a whole lot. I think that Ryan Day really managed him, and they played defense first, kicking game, and then let the offense come along. Garrett Nussmeier played lights out. He's going to be fine. But the LSU defense, look, Harold Perkins is a game changer. He was when he was a freshman. Then his second year, they wanted to make him an inside linebacker, and everybody in Baton Rouge was like, "What the hell are you doing?"
Yeah.
The kid coming off the edge, you can't block him. He finds the football, and sure enough, on fourth down the other night, he found the football and forced Klubnik into a bad throw. I agree with Coach Johnson. Some of these air raid guys, they abandon the run way too quickly and don't give enough or have enough plays in the run game. And so that came back yesterday. Lenore Sellers, wow.
Yeah. Yeah. Let me ask Dave.
Wow.
Oh, Dave.
I mean, he's going to get better throwing the football too, but he has some natural instincts about him. And I tell you what, Carson Beck answered a lot of the critics last night and did a heck of a job. But how about that Miami defense? And man, they brought everybody out last night at Miami. Jimmy Johnson starting to get the crowd going. Michael Irvin, I thought he was going to put a helmet on and go in and play.
I did too.
You brought the old Canes back. I was just looking for my boy who ran the bar that was giving them all the bonus money for knocking players out when we got ready to play them down there in '89. I mean, Luther Campbell told him, "You knock out Tony Rice, that's $1,500. You knock out Rocket, that's $1,000." I mean, man, they had bounties going on Notre Dame players forever.
Yeah.
I looked on that sideline last night. I said, "Yep, brings back the old days."
Yeah, it was an incredible. I watched that one last night. Watched so much football. Got to be careful of getting curvature of the spine, Dave Bartoo. Along the lines of what the coaches said, you put out some numbers about starts and how important those are. Let's get your take on Arch Manning and Texas up at Ohio State. Neither quarterback had a lot of experience going in the game. I thought defense would carry Texas, but they had no offense.
No, nothing. And why do we build up the expectations, right? I mean, if it was Arch Brown, if it was Arch Bartoo, nobody cared, right? I actually think the bigger story is really from the standpoint of Of all the losses, I know everybody's looking at Alabama, but I really thought Texas needed that to get over the hump. Steve never beats anybody. He hadn't beaten anybody, right? He always has that doesn't win the big game moniker. He had a window of opportunity. You had an Ohio State team with a new DC, a new OC, and basically a rookie quarterback, and they couldn't take advantage. It's like they played tight, and so as much as everybody's looking at the teams that won, I think we also got to really take a look at the teams that lost. I don't think Clemson's in trouble because of their schedule, but Notre Dame, they got Texas A&M next weekend. They could be 0-2 in a heartbeat. And Texas, because of their head coach, I think it's a really fragile balance. Yeah, Arch didn't live up to the performance. I don't care. It was his first big start. It was at the Horseshoe. Come on,
Yeah.
right? If anything, let's give Ohio State credit for the game plan they put together to shut down Steve Sarkisian, Arch Manning, and the Texas Longhorns.
Yeah.
But to me, is the bigger picture with Texas is how does this mentally affect them going forward, losing this opportunity in this season? I mean, you got a couple of veteran coaches here, man. They know as well as anybody. Psychology in 18 to 22-year-olds can go real south real fast in a season.
Yeah. Coach Johnson, you watched on the color TV Saturday, Alabama, Florida State. And I was over here, and our daughter in Atlanta, who's an Alabama grad, she was somewhat distraught, to say the least. But, it's just, I was telling Dave, because it's just football. And I'm like, and then some of my group texts with my Auburn and Alabama friends, let's just say the decorum prohibits me repeating some of the posts. But Coach Johnson, you watched that game Saturday from Tallahassee. What were your takeaways? Because Florida State got a lot of new guys on the roster.
Yeah, I hate to not talk about Alabama, but to me, the thing that was most impressive when the game's over and you look back on it and say, how in the hell did Florida State turn this thing around in 6 months?
Boom.
And I just didn't hardly even watch them last year. It was so frustrating to watch them. They didn't perform. They would quit. The kids would not play through 4 quarters. I mean, it was just terrible. I think Malzahn has had something to do with it, because if there's one thing he can do, he can run the football. The amount of practice time having worked for him, that he concentrates on running game with all the different movement, and everybody calls it eye candy. But there are about 3 blocking schemes, and those guys up front can flat do it. They don't screw stuff up, and if they do it enough, that they become a physical football team. And this is a 6-month transition. So the other thing is Castellano. I remember watching him play against, I think it might have been Florida State when he was at Boston College, and I don't know what happened up there, but that he's a damn problem, boy. I would hate to coach against him. I think he's smart. Tough, he's aggressive, he's got skills, and he's just a one-man band, and all of that together, he fits Gus's offense perfectly, and he's been with him before. And I don't know, maybe it's just that one game they got all juiced up and played over their head. But I look at them, and I think they've got a really good group this year. It's kind of like 2 years ago. They were, monsters on the midway. Second year, all fell apart. Third year, and it's all a new football team. I mean, literally, it's about 50 new faces on each team, each going forward. So that was the story to me. I don't think Alabama looked awful, but at times they didn't look really physical.
Coach, to add to that slot receiver, when you have speed now with a running quarterback like Castellanos, when they ran that flip reverse from right to left, and that kid just outran everybody, he is the ACC 100-meter champion and 200-meter champion. So now Gus has got some ability to get the ball in playmakers' hands. Rob, you were talking earlier about running backs that can take it to the house from anywhere on the field.
Yeah.
Florida State's got one in that slot receiver. Now, you mix that up with the ball getting on the perimeter. My gosh, calling plays. I mean, that fits right into what Gus wants to do. And then he comes back and he runs his inside zone scheme, and then he's going to run the RPO. But now you got a quarterback that can get the ball on the edge. And when you have a kid on the outside, the tunnel screen, the bubble screen, the reverse, things like that, speed, that old saying, cliche, speed kills. And I think I agree with Ellis. In 6 months, part of what they did was they changed their overall team speed, and Alabama just didn't react. I was so disappointed in the lack of enthusiasm and effort by Alabama. And then, started the third quarter when Florida State scores and goes up 24-7.
Yeah.
It was like the body language of the Alabama kids was like, oh my gosh, here we go again.
Yeah.
And September's such a critical month because these teams that lose games early, you get to the end of September and you got guys looking at each other like, we went through 9 months to get to this. This is the same old, same old.
Yeah. Let me say this.
The only thing I will say is Gus spends so much time on all this movement and everything. I mean, being on a practice field with them, they're not good at pocket protection on third down.
Nope.
And that has gotten him in trouble in some years. But when he had Cam, he's his own protection. When we had Nick Marshall, he's his own protection. And now they got another one in Castellana. So 3rd and 8 and 3rd and 12 has usually not been a good situation for his style of offense. But now he's got quarterback that can take the ball down and scramble. Yeah. On a dang quarterback draw on 3rd and 10.
Dave, I wanted to throw this before I go to you. Talk about psychology. Coach Johnson, when you came in with Gus for the 2013 season, Auburn was coming off the worst season in 62 years. 1950, my dad was a sophomore in architecture at Auburn. Wofford beat Auburn. They went 0-10 with Earl Brown. And you, in that first year, y'all were within a whisker of a national championship. That is a 180 turn, and you're to be commended for that. So, Dave, jump back in because the psychology, the mental part, that 6 inches between the ears, Dave, you talk about it a lot.
Yeah, well, I enjoy talking about it because I can't measure it, right? I mean, my life, not just college football and NFL football and the teams that I work for, everything I've done in my career has all been around telling a story with numbers. And one of the greatest intangibles of sports, one of them that I always carry with me, okay, one of my favorite quotes of all time, Yogi Berra, 90% of this game is half mental, right? And a lot of people laugh at it because they don't understand that the higher the level you get, the less there is between the elite players. And I believe what really defines them is what's up here. The mental toughness, the mental stamina, and the ability to push through it. And so one of the questions you may have psychologically, Rob, you just kind of touched on it a little bit. You get to the end of September. What are we playing for? Does the pay motivate them to keep playing hard because contract may not get renewed, nobody may pick them up, or does the pay make them fall apart easier because they're getting paid? So there's a layer of psychology there in terms of the motivation to work by the players if things aren't going well and maybe going off the rails. So I think that's a fascinating part of the whole scheme of sports, not just college football.
Well, that's where it was better in the old days when it was under the table, because if they weren't giving full effort, you could withhold funds.
Boom.
They got you.
Not only withhold funds, but back when they had training tables, Ellis, how many times have we heard, hey, son, if you don't practice better, we're breaking your plate. And guys would look at you and go, what? You're not eating at the dining hall. We're taking your food privileges away. We're breaking your plate. And it's like, oh, man, I better find a girlfriend fast who can cook for me. I don't care what she looks like, but she better be ready to cook, man. I mean, break your plate and withhold the funds. Yeah, man. You had a stick.
Yeah. But I mean, this is, you cannot get this insight from people other than the three of y'all. I mean, and we all know that you take away a dog's food, you can motivate them. You don't reward a Labrador retriever every time he brings the bumper back with a biscuit. You'll have a fat dog. The reward is the retrieve. Okay. I can tell you that from training a lot of hunting dogs. The best in the business is my friend Chris Aiken, though, at Web Footed Kennels in Jonesboro, Arkansas. Shameless plug on Facebook, but he is the best. But you know what? All of y'all, I'm just going to throw this one out there. Pete, you were at Missouri Thursday night. I called Pete, guys. He's on the sidelines at the Missouri game. I just texted Caleb McAndrew, correspondent. He's the beat writer for the Columbia, Missouri Daily Tribune. See if we can get him on the show Wednesday. There's a big game coming up. The border war, Kansas and Missouri. And if you've ever seen the movie The Outlaw Josie Wales, you know what I'm talking about, guys. This is a big one coming up. Anybody want to take a talk about that? Because that really matters. Kansas, by the way, just in the last month has invested $450 million into their football program, Dave Bartoo. That's a big deal.
That's a lot of money, isn't it? Whew-wee. Exciting football game, right? And, Leipold, by my numbers, in the Big 12, he is the best road coach in the Big 12 in the last 3 years. I don't know where the game's being played at. Is it a neutral?
It is in Columbia, I believe.
Yes.
Okay.
Those students can't wait. They were already fired up in the second half with a chant I can't repeat on this show.
All right, Douglas Niedermeyer.
It wasn't fire truck, KU. Y'all can figure, and it went on for about 5 minutes.
It's going to be a glorious game, though, isn't it? Isn't it? Oh man!
I got to say, I absolutely love Kansas and Missouri. I saw some stuff on Twitter last night, and I mean, you talk about a history of hate and a rivalry, guys. It's so exciting. Coach Johnson, Pete, y'all, Dave, everybody watching this college football weekend was it was quite frankly, it was incredible. And I watched Georgia Tech Friday night get a win at Colorado. Guys, that was Haynes King. How good a quarterback is he, Coach Johnson? I mean, if you had to defend, he's a 6th-year player. Father's the head of the Texas High School Football Coaches Association. A good guy to have on your team if you like to recruit.
Yeah, I remember last year, one of the games he was hurt, had a shoulder or something, and just kept going and played the whole game. Just a tough guy. I think his problem when he was out at A&M, he was in a system that didn't fit him. They were trying to throw the ball too much with him. But I tell you, he's a tough kid. That's the most impressive thing about him to me. And that kind of fits Brent's mold. The head coach and they're two peas in a pot.
Well, the coach, did we lose you?
I don't think so.
Oh, sorry about that. Okay. All right. So here's some questions on here. Was Bernie Kosar there last night? And everybody else in Miami history was, except for Howard Schnellenberger, and I'm sure he's watching from above. But man, here's David Baldoff. Paul Feinbaum is eating crow on Arch Manning this morning. Well, hey, I was wrong on some too. I thought Clemson would cover against LSU. There was so many games. Pete, as a coach, and by the way, guys and gals, go on Amazon. This is a great picture of Pete Cordelli. You and Ray Romano have any relationship from Everybody Loves Raymond? Just like him.
I better ask some of my relatives. Being from Scranton, Pennsylvania, and born in Scranton, I was told when I was born, if anything ever happened, you get one phone call, and it's not to your lawyer, it's to Uncle Tony. So I better call Uncle Tony and find out what the heck's going on.
There you go. All right. So another one that, we didn't talk much about Florida. Florida just dominated. I thought they'd win 56-14. I was looking at the line. They won, 55-0? So was I right?
Yes.
1 point. Dave Bartoo, what's going on in Vegas? They've got to be 3,400 kids transferred this year. I don't think it's a missing persons report every game.
It is, but something they've been dealing with it for 4 years now. And Uh, they just figure out a way to be ahead of everybody else. It's a level playing field. Your sports better has to analyze everything just as much in the same environment. So, um, you know, I think everybody's getting used to it at this point, and it certainly seems like Las Vegas has its ways, its mathematicians of figuring it out just a little bit better than your typical sports better.
Yeah. Coach Johnson, interesting stat. Kalen DeBoer in 14 games, Alabama's lost 4 games to unranked opponents. Doing some research, Nick Saban in 17 years lost 4 games to unranked opponents. And Alabama's lost 5 of their last 6 games away from Tuscaloosa. Okay, this is the little coach's corner here. Ellis to Pete. What are you telling this team right now if you're Kalen DeBoer as their coach?
Well, a lot of times you can overanalyze
Yeah.
stats, unranked teams, ranked teams, away games, all this kind of thing. But I think if you lose to teams that are not as good as you, and I'm not saying Florida State's not as good as Alabama.
Yeah.
Hell, what I watched the other night, they might be better.
Yeah.
But if you're not ready to play an unranked team, to me, it kind of speaks of what's going on in your building and your practice field. A lot of this stuff that happens on Saturday, the average fan, is like, why didn't he call this? Or why don't they get so-and-so in the game? Or why don't they do this? 90% of this stuff's already baked into the cake the previous 5 days. And when you have that kind of a personality or complexion that you're not ready to play against teams of that nature, you're supposed to beat them, that tells me you got a little lack of consistency in your program.
Yeah.
And one other thing, I don't mean to backtrack, but all those celebrities and former players that were there for Miami, they showed a shot of Michael Irvin one time, and I'm not sure he knew he was there. And I think the best thing Michael could do, if he's not already on him, he needs some of your gummies, Dave. I'm telling you.
Pete.
I agree. When Irvin grabbed that receiver's hand and he started shaking him, and his head was going every which way, I'm like, Michael, do you have a couple friends inside your body helping you get excited? And that was a heck of a shot right there. But sometimes old habits you never break, especially when you get on that sideline and you got that big hurricane and the smoke and all that. That just kind of makes you revert back to the old days. And man, I'm telling you, we went down there in '87. We're warming up, and all of a sudden here they come out of that locker room, and dang, Bernard Clark comes over, and Derek Brown, our tight ends from Titusville, Florida.
Oh, yeah.
And Bernard Clark is stomping on his hand, and Tuberville's the linebacker coach, and he's going, Bernard, you can't do it. He said, hell yeah, I can, coach. I can do whatever I want because my friends inside are telling me I can. And it's like, what the heck is going on? The Miami culture. Yeah, Michael Irvin reverted back to the old Miami culture last night.
Dave.
It was wild, man.
It is no holes barred Monday morning blitz, man. Dave Bartoo, lights out. I'm telling you, sleep gummies, they work no sleep hangover. They work, and coach is right. They'll calm you down. You're not going to be dozing off during the day.
Then Michael,
just keep playing, and the magic finds a way to show up.
Yeah, I love it. And Dave, numbers wise, you also take a look in the game. LSU. I was really impressed with LSU's defense. Getting a win on the road, and I think this is the first home loss for Clemson in memory. I know it's the second time in LSU's history they've won a true road game against a top 10 opponent that's not in the SEC. So that right there is a lot of reason to celebrate. But obviously, as the coaches know, there's a lot to clean up. And after that, I want to get your take, guys, on Auburn's win over Baylor, which was, you look back on it, that's a damn good win.
just had to go to Auburn, right? Just had to get there, didn't we, Rob? Didn't we? Actually, a little side note, because for the listeners, our firm, one of our main jobs is helping head coaches staff with staffing and performance analytics. And I agree with you. I think one of the biggest under talked about things this weekend was LSU's defense on the road against a veteran quarterback and an offensive coordinator, Garrett Riley, that has put up some really freaky numbers in his life. So that LSU defense, I know Coach said the LSU run game, big question mark. Man, I think outside of I don't even think the ball game, the football goes to the Ohio State defense. I think the best one on the field for what they were playing might have been that LSU defense on the road. But keep in mind too, everybody out there listening, Miami had a great weekend on defense, and so did Florida State. Tony White at Florida State, in our system, he is a top 15 percentile defensive coordinator, 4-star, one of the best acquisitions nobody talked about. Everybody talked about Gus. Tony White is every bit as graded as high as Gus as a coordinator. And Corey Heatherman. Mario went out, got him another 4+ star defensive coordinator. He was at Minnesota last year. He's had a great career. I think quietly a couple of guys on the defensive side that nobody was talking about, that our numbers had as really good defensive coordinators, stepped up and made a big difference this weekend.
Yeah, Coach Johnson, Jimmy McDavid's watching the show out in Weatherford, Texas. A friend of mine from high school who played football at Texas, walked on there, and I'm going to tell you what, knows the game. After you make your next comment, he wants you to comment, if you can, about Texas's defense, which he thought would be good enough to carry them to a win at the Shoe.
Well, real quick, I don't know if this makes any sense, but to me, Alabama and Clemson and Texas sort of start looking like each other. I don't know about the physicality, every snap, the grip, the grind. Okay. When they got somebody that they can run over, take the top off, or they can run around them, or they can blitz them and hit them in the back. I used to call them drive-bys. But when it gets down to, you got to grind it toward the end of the game. You got to have a running game to keep yourself on the field, keep your defense off the field. Some of these things just don't seem like they're a real priority in a game. And when they're not, it means it's probably not been a big priority the previous 3 months. So if you want to have a really good running game, you can't just talk about running backs. You got to put time in it on the practice field. And one of the most sick feelings is when you lose a player on the practice field to an injury. But you cannot play football without practicing football. So it's just, you have to push through it. You have to do that. Yeah. And I don't know. I'm not saying they don't do it. I'm saying when it's put on the field on Saturday, it doesn't look like they do it. So yeah. I'm just passing that comment. And the other thing, what I was going to add to about Dave, the reason I agree that this LSU defense deserves as many accolades as anybody this past Saturday, that was their problem last year. That was their Achilles heel. Yep. Had they had a good defense last year, they'd have won 11 games, gone playoffs, and been right in the middle of it. But their defense needed retooling. And I didn't know what they did with the coaching staff, but they definitely brought in some players. And the way they played against Clemson was very impressive. And I think combining that was the problem last year, and hell, they got it fixed. Yeah, now, Clemson couldn't run the ball last year. It ain't fixed.
Yep. Coach, and to go along with Coach Johnson, in that workbook, Rob, under D lineman, one of the categories in the evaluation is control the point of attack. And to go along with what Ellis says, if you can't control the line of scrimmage at the point of attack with either the one technique, the three technique, and if they both draw doubles, it's a numbers game. Now your edge guys get to be players. Your inside backers, you're either taking A gap or you're playing the pinch scrape and doing those things. Right now, Florida State, they're controlling the point of attack with that D line. LSU went out and got a bunch of guys in the portal
Yeah.
And that was one of the concerns of Brian Kelly a year ago. Like Ellis said, they could not control the line of scrimmage and the point of attack. They were getting moved. There was a surge coming off the offense, and nobody was filling those gaps. And it's crazy. People think that it's just easy. Somebody's got to be in the A gap. Somebody's got to be in the B gap, and you got to bounce that ball sideways. Teams that can do that right now, they're going to win. And
Yeah.
it goes back to what Dave said at the start of the show when you asked him about quarterbacks and snaps. Well, it's the same thing in the O-line, D-line. Who's the experience? Who's the anchor guy?
Yeah.
Who's the guy that we got to create a double team with? Well, now that frees somebody else up with. And if you don't practice it, Coach Holtz used to give it. I'm going back to 1972 now when I played for him at NC State. We had 7 areas we had to control if we were going to win the game. And then the last 2 bullet points were, after those 7 areas, number 1, don't flinch. And number 2, always be the most physical team on the field. And again, I go back to what Coach Johnson said. If you don't practice physicality, how can you become physical? It's like asking a championship boxer who's getting ready for a title fight, hey man, we want you in Vegas, we want you wherever, pay-per-view. But you can't spar for 2 weeks going into the fight. Are you kidding me? Especially those linemen. That's the only way they get better. Hand placement, eye placement, having a base, driving, doing all the little things. But you know what? There are going to be fights. It's a mentally tough game.
Yeah.
And I hate to say it, we have not become very tough on the high school level, which transfers to the college level.
Yeah.
And then the guys in the NFL say, what in the world are we getting here? We've got to retrain guys when they come to our level because there's no physical practice going on anymore.
Yeah. Let me say, Max Howell is watching this show right now down in Fulton, Mississippi. Coach Howell, man, he watches every show and gives me great critique, feedback. He just said his good friend Pete Jenkins has been brought in as an advisor at LSU. And I want to give Frank Duffy, who's watching right now up in Big Canoe, north of Atlanta, he said on the show Friday on our roundtable, he said, LSU, my folks down there are telling me is old school LSU up front on the defensive line. Dave Bartoo, again, this rapid fire Monday morning blitz, folks, thanks so much for watching. And Brendan Martin, our executive producer, what they just said, if you cannot emasculate college football and have a physical team, and it's all about player safety. That's a given. But it seems to me like the teams that get after your ass for a full 60 are going to have an advantage, even though they may not have the most talented roster.
That's I guess to a point that's true, and I think there's cycles with program in terms of that physicality. I think one of the biggest things, because you pointed out a couple teams, right? You pointed out Texas not having some physicality, right? Maybe Alabama not having some physicality, and I think it is the conference as a whole, because a decade ago. And Coach Johnson can attest to this, 2010 national champion, 2013 almost national champion at Auburn. The SEC was known for its defense, right? It's not a defensive conference. It's an offensive conference. I mean, you look across the board, which coordinators would you take? Right. And so to me, the conference has, and it started when Nick Saban started chasing points. Remember, one of the probably the best football teams on paper I saw, I think it was the 2009 Alabama team. They led the country in offensive scoring efficiency. They led the country in defensive scoring efficiency. And they were the second slowest team in the country to snap the football behind only Army. right? I mean, that is walking death football. When they can outscore you, you can't score against them, and they don't play fast. But then suddenly Nick started going, ooh, I want an offense that's sexy and scores a lot of points because that's what everybody else is doing. And then what happened in the rest of the SEC? They started following what Nick was doing. But the one guy who went the other way was Kirby Smart, and he kept playing defense, and it won him a couple national titles. But I think as a whole, the SEC followed Nick Saban's lead and became a soft offensive oriented conference. And I think that some of them, like the LSU defensive line, I think what wins football is strength in the lines. Like Pete was saying, controlling the spot of attack, right? Whether it's in your offensive line or your defensive line, I think that still holds true. But I think the SEC as a whole needs to get back to that physicality. I think they went too far one way offensively, lost the physicality mentality, and I think that they need to bring it back. And those teams that do, I think are going to play winning football.
Yeah, I'll say this, something interesting about experience and wisdom. My son Wilson got to go in high school as marketing club trip to New York, and they went and visited all these big companies. They got to Brooks Brothers, and they give you a quick 2-minute Cliff Note version of why the company is what they are about Brooks Brothers. They said, here at Brooks Brothers, we're not good because we're old. We're old because we're good. And a culture, Coach Johnson, it matters. Coach Johnson still wears the Brooks Brothers 3-piece suit as he is a wise man. No, like what Dave just said, all of y'all, this wisdom here, it is a culture. Dave has talked about Kirby Smart, best defensive coordinator, out there the last 15 years. And did you hear what he said over the weekend on social media? What destroys your culture is a sense of entitlement. Somebody that was, born on third base and thinks they hit a triple. Expand, Coach.
Me?
Yes, sir. Yeah, Coach Johnson. Sorry.
Well, I think what's happened in the age of social media and all the things that are there for kids that you can't control, when you do have them, you better get it under control. So if you think you're going to keep everything from getting in their ears and their eyes all week, and when they go home to the dorm and when they're downtown, you're not. And kids are kids. So when you do have them those 4 or 5 hours a day, you better put it in them because it's not going to show up on Saturday. I always tell them, I said, guys, y'all are planting corn. You think you're going to show up Saturday and pick tomatoes. It's the stuff you're doing on the practice field is not going it ain't going to work Saturday. And what's happened, I think, in a lot of cases, like the Georgias, if you will, and some of the other things, they used to stack depth.
Yeah.
And man, they were too deep on both sides of the ball, and you don't have to worry about getting somebody with a rolled up ankle on Tuesday. You put the other guy in there, and you get ready for Saturday. But it's dangerous now because sometimes you lose the wrong 2 or 3 kids on either side of the ball, and you're done. And so coaches are cautious about doing things where it's going to be increased the possibility of injury on the practice field. You get them hurt in the game. I mean, hell, you're out there in the game, you got to play. But it is hard to develop culture, physical culture, if you don't really have it in your program on the practice field.
Yeah. Rob, in 1986, we followed Jerry Faust at Notre Dame, and we weren't very good. We were big, we were fat, we were slow, and we were weak. Not a great combination to play at Notre Dame and try to win a natty, all right?
No.
But anyway, so in 87, Coach Holtz comes in, and he said, all right, we got through camp. We're playing Michigan State, Purdue to start. Here's what we're going to do. We're playing 2 games a week. Now, he comes into the staff. Nobody has an idea of what he's talking about. He said, we're playing 2 games a week. Everybody knows the game we're playing on Saturday. That's been publicized for years. He said, but every Tuesday, our first day in pads, we're having a 30-play scrimmage at the end of practice. Wow. He said, come hell or high water, we're going to be physical. We're not physical enough. He said, right now, Michigan is more physical than us. Michigan State with Perlis is. Nick Saban was the defensive coordinator there then. Purdue, that's, I mean, they would get after you now. So he tells the team, here's what we're doing. That first Tuesday, man, we go out, we go 30, but we're in the middle of a drive. He said, nope, keep going until you either score or the defense stops you. We go down, we score. Well, then he tells us as coaches, we go in, we shower, go to the dining hall, get dinner, we come back. We grade the scrimmage like it's game film. And then Wednesday morning, we meet at 6:30, and at 7 o'clock, we post the depth chart. Well, at Notre Dame, if you're a starter, you get 4 home tickets, game tickets. If you're not a starter, you get 2. And back then, everybody's selling tickets. I ain't let Coach Johnson. You made money selling tickets.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, we had guys at 6:15 down waiting for that depth chart to be posted. Because whoever came out on that first team, that's who started. Rob, we started out 8-0.
Yeah.
And
Well, let me
guess
ask.
what? It became a mindset.
Yeah.
And then we'd always focus on Wednesday on our goal line short yardage period. So we had 2 days back to back. We were physical. Now, the problem becomes, like Ellis said, what's your depth like from scholarship 45 to 85? Because a couple of those guys, and now that concept is still in play today. Who's good from scholarship 45 to 85? Because with a 12-game schedule, at some point, somebody who's on that scout team, you're going to have to elevate. And you know what? Those second teamers, they have to get ready like they're a first teamer because they're a play away.
Yeah.
They are one play away from getting in that ball game.
I'm going to say before we go to Dave, I think Coach Holtz, you were there because my friend Chuck Lonza from CBHS was playing on that team. When Coach Holtz got there, 86 was the first year. And he said, I looked around that locker room after a loss. I didn't see a lot of guys upset like I felt like they should be taking it, personally. But I saw one guy over in the corner of the locker room who'd smashed his locker up, a kid from Chicago who grew up lifting manhole covers up for weights, defensive lineman Chris Zorich. And he said, I can build a national championship team around him. You knew Chris Zorich. That's a guy, if you owe him money, pay him double. But I digress. Dave, again, looking at the SEC, you're right. We flipped the narrative. Kirby's standing his ground. What about Georgia? I've got Georgia. I picked Georgia to play Alabama for the SEC championship. I think I'm going to be right on Georgia. We'll see what happens with Alabama.
Right. It's a long season.
Yeah, it is.
It's a long season, but some trends have to start somewhere. That's what I always say is you got to start a trend at some point, but we don't know it's a trend until we get to October. So, there's a lot of teams that may have started a really bad trend this weekend, and come October, we see that they weren't very good. So, but I wouldn't take too much stock into one single week. But certainly you got to be happy. And I'm a defensive guy. I love seeing shutouts, and speaking of Georgia, when I was looking at the scoreboard, they were up 28-0, 21-0 on Marshall, and I couldn't resist. I click on that score and I go to the team stats and I'm like, show me the money, right? And it's like Marshall 41 yards. And I'm just like, oh God, that is dead sexy right there. 41 yards. Not only are you getting your ass beat, you can't even move the football. So, I know that, score aside, to me, the ability to absolutely mentally and physically exert your defensive will on another team is just, dude, it's like Major League Playoff Baseball, 1-0. Somebody pitching 9-inning shutout. Man, teams like Georgia or any defense that can go out there and do something like that. I know it's not sexy to fans because this ain't the home run, but God, I love seeing that for Georgia this weekend, and just an absolute throttling of Marshall.
Yeah. Coach Johnson, that Auburn game, the thing I like about Jackson Arnold is a friend of mine told me one time, you got to have a little redneck in you if you want to win in anything. And he's a tough, confident young man who's been working with Patrick Mahomes' trainer. He's the leading rusher, by the way, in the Southeastern Conference right now. Jackson Arnold from Denton Guyer High School. But he grew up for 10 years, lived in Sewanee, Georgia, where the Falcons train. But, Coach, what were your takeaways from Auburn? And then, Pete, your takeaways from Florida, regardless of the opponent. But a win on the road at Waco is not easy against a Big 12 team that could be, playing for the championship.
Yeah, we don't know what Baylor's going to be yet, but they have some speed, and they're a decent team. I was very impressed with Auburn on offense, except I still want to find out if they can throw the football effectively when you have to throw the football. We sit around and talk about a lot of stats and all these different things. Somebody had 180 yards rushing in a game, but they didn't have to pick up 2 yards towards the end of the game to take the game.
Yeah.
And that's where a lot of these teams are. They get their sexy rushing yardage with the reverse sweeps and jet sweeps and all these other things. But then there's a third and a yard and a half right at the middle of the fourth quarter, and they don't pick it up. Because when you got to run it, they can't run it. So I'm going to reserve judgment a little bit on it. I think Jackson Arnold, just like Castellano, has gone into a situation that was a good move. He did the right thing. He's ended up in the right place. I think Freeze's attack is a lot like Gus. Freeze's system will fit him perfectly. Now, what I don't know, when somebody does shut that running game down, how many third and longs can Jackson Arnold convert when he's got to sit back there in the pocket and get it done? And time will tell. They got real good receivers.
Yeah.
So that's the thing on that. But one other thing, a lot of the teams that had the little bench press games, we call them, the guys could walk around and look good and all that shit. There was about 10 of those where nobody had to worry about who was going to win.
Yeah.
But Georgia's quarterback played pretty dang good. Who's else? Tennessee. I'm not saying Syracuse is not a good program, but they don't have a good team this year. He lost everything last year.
Yeah.
But Aguilar,
yes,
Dave talked about him the other day. Now, that's an unknown. And he could not elevate Appalachian past what Appalachian was. I mean, they were just pretty pedestrian when he was their quarterback. So far, he's proved he can get it done. Maybe Josh Heupel is the key. But he played very well yesterday against a decent program. So there was some other positives for these teams that were not one of the 5 marquee games. Auburn's game, I think, it's a lot to be excited about. When they had to play first, second down, third down balanced football, their secondary looks vulnerable. And the front wasn't extremely stout. When it got toward the end of the game and they've got a double-digit lead and they could let those front guys tee off, they can rush the passer. And then they didn't have any problems in the secondary. But when they couldn't rush the passer, there were some really nasty long balls. Baylor got some kids that can fly.
Yeah.
But early in the game, man, they were hitting skinny posts and wheel routes and things, and they were explosive plays. So there's some things to be concerned about on the defensive side.
Yeah, Pete, you see this comment from Mike. Gators offensive line's overrated. Long Island T had 11 tackles for loss. That's against a Marshmallow. I mean, it doesn't matter the opponent. As a coach, as an offensive coach like you are, and football, your comments on that.
Well, again, when did they come? Did they come in the third and fourth quarter? Florida had built up a pretty good lead, and things happen look, in this first game, when Florida got up, he started playing a lot of guys because you want to build morale with those third teamers who are getting the crap beat out of them through August. And all of a sudden, oh man, I got into the game. I played in the swamp. Ron Cooper's the head coach at LIU. He was the GA for us at Minnesota and ended up coming to Notre Dame with Coach Holtz. And he's going to have an attacking style of defense. He was the head coach at Louisville at one time. But look, it was good to see Lagway play in the game. All this concern, his arm, his leg, is this, is that. Play the game, get the snaps. Billy knows what he's doing. I promise you, Billy Napier's one of the best coaches in this country. I have great respect for him. And it's taken a while, and some outside circumstances had to be resolved to get this Florida team going back, getting them back again. But as Florida moves on, watch out. They finished the season last year on a roll, man. I mean, they were playing well. Put up 55 on air, that's tough. All right. So I'm really not concerned because, coaching cliche, biggest improvement you make is from game 1 to game 2 because you never play against an outside opponent in college football to start the season.
Yeah.
Now, moving forward, Florida's going to be just fine. I expect Florida to be one of those teams that are going to be sneaky. At some point, they're going to find out how good they are when they go to Baton Rouge in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
They got LSU in 2 weeks, and they're getting Lagways some time, and now they're going to go against a quality defense because when you can get Weeks on one side and number 7 on the other, who's Superman. That cat as a freshman, he's a player of the year, like we were talking about. So
Yeah.
Florida LSU in 2 weeks is going to be the game of the week in college football.
Yeah.
And we'll find out a whole lot about Florida here early in the year and LSU.
Yeah.
But LSU's playing at home, so I wouldn't be too concerned. This will be corrected. I promise you, there's some things that go on in that first game that some guys, it's the first time they've ever taken the field. And it goes back to Dave saying, it comes down to experience and how many snaps have you taken.
Yeah.
But Billy knows what he's doing, and I look forward to this Florida team developing into one of the better teams in the country before the season's over.
Yeah, we got to wrap it up. But unbelievable commentary from all three of y'all. It's nothing new. It's every time I get y'all together, and I cannot thank you enough. Dave, last 30 seconds here. Just your thoughts on how much fun this season is likely to be.
Oh, it's on paper, it's the most balanced season I've ever seen. In terms of who's going to win it all, the best teams and so forth. I would say my biggest takeaway though, this weekend is how about the ACC?
Yeah.
Right. Georgia Tech goes on the road. Miami gets a big win against Notre Dame. You got Florida State's big win against Alabama.
Yep.
And how about a little shout out to your Auburn Tigers, because being a road team from the SEC wasn't too kind this last weekend to most of the teams.
No, it was not. Look, we'll do it again next Monday. Thank you so much, Dave Bartoo, Pete Cordelli, Coach Ellis Johnson. Blessed in more ways than we can count to have y'all on here. All right, let's say something real quick. Get out today. It is Labor Day. Landers Ford, Memphis.com, Poplar and Houston Levy. They've got all the new cars, trucks, and SUVs in stock. They're one of the top 5 in the country in sales of the 25 Ford Expeditions. They've got the Broncos, got the Ford Escape, and they got a service department second to none. Just make it simple. When you get there, I'd say I'd like to talk to Brad Bellamy, the general manager of Landers Ford in Memphis. They're all over. They'll deliver anywhere. They will have your vehicle delivered on a truck, and it can be, like I said, taken anywhere. Great people to work with, huge inventory, and they'll find a way to get you driving off the lot from Landers. Also, HewlettandDunn.com. We were out there Thursday, like I said, on the way down here to Atlanta. They've got some great looking boots in there, like 7,000 pairs. Great men's boots coming in every day. Great clothing. Filson clothing, Filson luggage, duck heads, more than you just can't imagine how many they've got, but they've got an incredible selection of clothes for men, women, and kids boots out there, and luggage and clothing and jeans, everything. Johnson & Murphy shoes, Stetson, Ariat, Wrangler, you name it, they've got it at HewlettandDunn.com. They'll deliver and ship anywhere. Hey, how you fight is how you live. Rumble Boxing, Union and McLean. Get out there, put your dukes up. They're open every day of the week. Ask about them. Let Ann Camp Lee know you heard about them on Sidelines. How you fight is how you live. For executive producer Brendan Martin, Rob Brown saying, most often we see the face of Christ in the least among us. Have a happy Labor Day, everybody. Have a great day. We'll see you tomorrow. Thanks for watching.